Hello everyone, it's Lily. I'm a first-year medical student and former registered nurse. Today I'm going to discuss your personal statement. Perfecting your personal statement is the difference between getting an interview to go to medical school or tacking on another gap year. I will be giving you tips on how to format your personal statement, specifically if you are a registered nurse or you have experience in the healthcare field. I will preface this video by saying that I truly believe that the reason I got an interview to go to the university that I am attending for medical school is because I spent so much time on my personal statement. I had at least 8 people help me edit my personal statement, but truly I've been working on this statement for many years. And this is the first tip that I have to share. Do not start from scratch. You probably have a skeleton of a personal statement somewhere, especially if you are attending college. Build off of that skeleton of a personal statement to craft your medical school specific personal statement. It is much harder to start a personal statement writing session when you're just staring at a blank page. But if there's already a skeleton that you can work off of, it can start the wheels turning a lot sooner. Let's first discuss how you will gather the information, the content, the compelling stories that you are going to use to craft your personal statement. I have mentioned this before in a previous video. My suggestion for most people who are in clinical healthcare settings is to keep a journal on them. Use your journal when there are moments that give you pause, that upset you, that excites you or inspires you. Use your journal to write about those moments and how you felt in those moments, why it made you feel like you need to go into medicine, why it makes you feel like you need to change your career. If you have a journal on you at all times, then right after these moments happen, you can capture them in written form and go back to them when you're ready to write your personal statement. The most important thing about your personal and secondary statements is how many anecdotal examples you have to offer. Anybody can say that they're a leader, that they're compassionate, or that they have empathy, but how many stories can you actually write and share that are captivating to the admissions committee that you can put in your personal statement? This is when you would go back to those journal entries that I had spoken about earlier. You would use examples from those journal entries to back up any claim that you are making that will give evidence to your traits, your accomplishments, and basically give the audience a more captivating and interesting personal statement to read. The really great thing about this is you are in healthcare, you're a nurse. So you have led groups of people, whether you've worked as a charge nurse or you have led nurses' aides, you have concrete examples that you can back up any of these claims. You can discuss all of the clinical experiences you've had, you can discuss your patient interactions, you can discuss the interactions you've had with the interdisciplinary team at the hospital. All right, so let's discuss how to format your personal statement. I'm actually just going to share how I formatted mine, so you can either work off of that or hopefully it'll give you an idea or inspire you in some way on how to organize yours. I started my personal statement in the first paragraph right away with a very eye-catching first sentence. I made sure that the first sentence in this paragraph grabbed my reader and compelled them to read more about my story. After I hooked in my reader with the first sentence, I went into detail about what genuinely made me want to go to medical school. It's important to talk about your upbringing and your background so that the admissions committee can get an idea of who you are and where you came from. So in the second paragraph, this is where I discussed my upbringing and my background. This is especially important to discuss if you have a very unique background. So I grew up in a Vietnamese refugee community, so I made sure that I highlighted that in the second paragraph. It is also more natural when you can give an introduction about yourself earlier in the statement rather than later. In my third paragraph, this is where I discussed what drew me into healthcare and why I chose to become a nurse. Being a nurse is a really important part of my background, and I'm assuming many of yours, so you don't want to neglect telling the admissions committee why you chose to go into nursing. Of course, in this paragraph, I also discuss how I truly loved my career as a nurse, but there was still a part of me that was aching for more. And this is why I chose to go into medicine. And I also wrote in this paragraph when the turning point was for me to pursue a career change. In the fourth paragraph of my personal statement, I discussed my accomplishments in healthcare. This included being a charge nurse on my floor and the research studies that I led as a research nurse, as well as my international volunteering experiences. I discussed in this paragraph why my accomplishments and my experience will help me become a great physician. Another important topic that I wanted to cover in my personal statement is why I chose to go the MD route and not the mid-level route. So I dedicated paragraph number 5 to discussing this topic. Of course, this is a personal topic, so you would have to come up with the reasons why you're choosing to go MD or DO route rather than an NP/PA route. This is a particularly optional paragraph to add to your personal statement. I just thought it was important to my story. In my final paragraph, I wrapped up my personal statement and wrote about my visions for my future career in medicine. That is one example of how you can format your personal statement. Of course, there is no reason that you need to do it exactly like that, but hopefully it gives you an idea on how to start on a blank page. It might help to just outline exactly the topics that you want to cover in each paragraph, and every couple of days go back to it and add a couple more lines. These statements are not meant to be written in one session. You should come back to it as you gain more experience and have more stories that you'd like to add to your personal statement. I am by no means an English major or a writing expert, but my one tip for writing well is to do your best to avoid passive voice in your writing. And instead, a more engaging and captivating way of writing is to write as much as you can in active voice. I am not going to go into detail about those two writing styles. Please look it up if you want to improve in your writing. That is just my advice on how to write better anecdotes for your personal statement. I honestly would argue that the personal statement is one of the most important aspects of your medical school application. It is what is going to get you that interview. Don't skimp on the time that you'll spend on it. Even if you had a stellar MCAT score and you have a perfect GPA and you have a crappy personal statement, it can honestly mean that you lost an opportunity to interview at a medical school. The admissions committee typically wants to accept a diverse class in their medical school, and that includes people like you who are nurses, non-traditional students. So if you can concisely discuss your background, why you're choosing to go to medical school, and why nursing has created you into a great applicant, then you can probably convince them to give you an interview. Once you have that interview, you're basically in. The interview is there to give the school a reason why they should not accept you. On that note, I also want to mention that secondary statements are just as important. The annoying thing about secondary statements is if you apply to 20 schools, it is likely you will get 20 secondary statement invitations to write. The reason why I don't want you to neglect your secondary statement is because I spent so much time dissecting mine for the state school that I wanted to be accepted into, and it paid off so much. I ended up getting offered a tuition scholarship because they really liked my secondary statement, and I just cannot believe that that happened. But I was so excited about it, and I'm so glad that I didn't neglect that statement. So just know that all this effort that you're putting into writing and perfecting your application and your statements will pay off somehow. Either you'll get into medical school, you may be offered scholarships, and it will improve your writing skills. Well, that's my video on the personal statement aspect of your application. Please, please, please don't save it for last. Don't quickly just write it the night before the application is due. It is so important. You can start it now if you wanted to. Start your outline, start journaling about what kind of stories you want to add to your personal statement. And when the time comes where you need to sit down and write out your rough draft, you'll have so much to draw upon. Good luck on writing your statement. Make sure that you have a lot of people on standby who can help edit your statement, and make sure that when you are sending in that application, it is polished and as perfect as you can make it. Let me know if you have any questions. Good luck on your journey, and thank you for watching my video.